Many things in the first Descendant are pretty straightforward and easy to understand, but there are some things that can be confusing, and for me, it was reactors. I didn't know which ones I should be looking for, what would be a good reactor versus a bad one, what should I keep, what should I throw away, and I didn't quite understand exactly how they worked and what they did. So we put together this basics video here to try to give you a good idea of how reactors work and which ones would be the best ones for you. So without any further ado, let's get into it. A reactor is an item that you equip to your Descendant that allows you to use your skills. They come in three different types. The first is standard, which is blue in color. And then a little bit stronger is going to be the rare reactors that are purple. And finally, the strongest ones are gold, which are considered ultimate. Now, all of the reactors do share some commonalities. These three sections here that I'm pointing out are all the same on each reactor, just the numbers are different. But your rare and your ultimate reactors have these extra sections that we're going to cover a little bit later on the video, but that makes them a lot stronger and a lot better to have on than the original blue one that you're seeing to the far left. But we're going to take a quick look at those sections that they all do have in common, just so we can get a good understanding of what exactly they are. The first thing to point out is this number right here, which indicates the level of the reactor. Next, you see Burning Mechanics Reactor. Burning means that it supplies bonuses to a fire-based arcade, and Mechanics means it supplies bonuses to a tech-based skill. Finally, this last section is Power when equipped, which indicates what your skill power is after all bonuses are considered. Let's take a look at the different reactors in the game. This is a Tingling Singularity Reactor. Tingling indicating that it supplies a bonus in skill power to an electric arcade descendant, such as Bunny or Sharon. You don't have to match this to your descendant, but it is a good idea, otherwise you're just giving up bonus points. Also, Singularity indicates that this provides a bonus to singular-based skills. You can notice here I have a check mark because the Descendant Glay that I have this on, while not electric, does have singular skills. And up on the right there, just want to point out its singular reactors are shaped like that little diamond. Next, we have a Materialized Mechanics Reactor. Now, the Materialized indicates that this applies a bonus to non-attribute skilled descendants, which is the largest group of descendants that we currently have in the game. Descendants like Glay, Enzo, Valby, Eugen, Kyle, these are all non-attribute skill-powered descendants, and they would receive the bonus from a materialized reactor. The second wording is a mechanics reactor, which indicates that this gives a bonus to any descendant who uses tech skills. And with that, they would receive that 0.2 bonus on any tech skill that they have. I don't know what you would call that shape. Couple squares? I don't know. Here we have a frozen mixture reactor. We're going to get rid of the arrows because you guys get the idea now. But frozen is applied to any descendant with chill skill power. That would be Viessa or Haley, and fusion skills is what the mixture indicates. So pretty simple. Here we have a toxic phase reactor. Now toxic obviously goes for toxic descendants like Freyna or Keelan. That's pretty clever there. And tree's name is Treebeard. But the difference here is the phase reactor, which applies a bonus to dimension skills. Again, this is the example here is on Glay, who does have dimension skills even though she doesn't have toxic. So she would receive the bonus, but keep in mind it's better to make sure that you're putting the right reactor on the right descendant. And that one's easy. It's a little pyramid. And then the final type of reactor we have is this Burning Mechanics Reactor. Now keep in mind there are only 4 skills: Tech, Fusion, Dimension, and Singular. So that's why we're seeing a repeat here. But there's 5 different types of arcades. So this one is a reactor that you would want to put on a fire-based descendant. Someone like Lepic or Ultimate Lepic, Blair, or Esimo are your fire arcade types. And this one gives the bonus to anybody who has a fire skill. So that is the elements and the text plus the wording as they describe the different types of reactors that we can use in the game. let's take a look now at those two sections that you see on the rare and ultimate reactors that you don't see on the standard one. The first one we're going to talk about is the optimization condition. And here you'll see that it says machine gun weapon group mounted, but I don't have a check mark there. If you reach that condition, having a machine gun mounted, your skill power is at 160%. But if you don't have a machine gun and you've missed that optimization condition, then your skill power remains at 100%. So technically there's not a negative to it, it's just you're missing out on a potential increase in power, but it doesn't drop you any further than your baseline is. If we look here at this rare reactor, I have a check mark where it says submachine gun weapon group equipped. Now what does that mean, equipped versus mounted? Well, I'm sitting here holding it now, but I'm going to switch over to the actual machine gun Enduring Legacy. The rare reactor that we were looking at has a condition for having a submachine gun equipped, and even though I'm holding a regular machine gun, I'm still getting credit for it, and I'm getting that 140% bonus. The reason is equipped just means that you're carrying it with you. It could be in any one of the 3 weapon slots. You could even have multiples. Doesn't matter. But as long as you have one equipped and not have to be holding it, then you're going to get that bonus for having a weapon equipped. But having a weapon mounted means that it is actively in your hands. If you were to take this weapon off, then that would take that check mark away. Mounted means actually in your hands. So here if we switch back to this submachine gun and I go back and look at this reactor, now I have missed that optimization and I'm back down to 100%. Now it has a pretty big effect on your skills. Let's look at them side by side. Here it is with equipped, where you can see I'm at 27, 24, 27, 24k on my skill power. But when I go back to having the submachine gun, I'm down to about 17 and 15. So it is kind of a drastic change if you can meet that condition or not. What you want to do is you kind of have to wager whether or not being stuck with a gun in your hand versus one on your person is worth that extra 20%. 100 is your baseline, 140 is good, 160 is obviously better. But if it comes at the cost of carrying a weapon that maybe isn't the best in the situation, like if you're running around with a sniper rifle and you're not good with them or you don't like them, or you're doing, a dungeon where there's tons of mobs and there you are with a one-shot gun, maybe then missing out on that equipped versus mounted might be the way to go. There are still some Descendants that I have that have a rare reactor applied to them because I really don't need that extra bonus and would rather have flexibility with my gun. But that's something you're going to have to make a decision on. And the final section on reactors is these perks. And we're going to have to get a little in depth to go into this section. So to explain this best, we're going to look at actual Descendants that I use. In this case, we're looking at the original Sharon, and her number 1 skill is an electric fusion skill called Release Cutting Force. It's like a slash with an electric sword. Then she has a Dimension electric skill called Active Camouflage to go invisible. Her 3rd skill is also a Dimension electric skill. This is Shock Nuts, where she lobs a stun grenade. And then her final skill is Flash Short Sword, which is a fusion electric skill. Now, so these are her 2s. Her fusion and Dimension are the 2 that I need to focus on with this character. But what I did when I built her was I wanted a character that could go invisible and complete outposts. That was my main goal. They've made some changes to the game where that's not as critical as it was before. But I wanted to be able to do an outpost on my own by going through, and even if it was one of the 4 portal ones where you have to destroy the 4 pieces of equipment versus the 3, I wanted to make sure that I had enough time and enough skill power to get that on my own. And I really didn't care too much about the fusion skills because I did have guns, but I did want to be able to use them. But my main focus had to be on going into the active camouflage and doing the outposts. So that was the build that I created for her. And in order to do that, I wanted a specific reactor that would focus more on Dimension than it did on fusion, but I didn't want to completely ignore the fusion skills because you do kind of need to fight your way out of some situations. So let's take a look at the reactor that I have on her right now. And as you can see, it's an electric, of course, and it bases itself, the first skill is on dimension, so I'm getting as much bonus power as I can to the dimension skills that I care about. And then my second perks here, I get the fusion skill. It's only 0.8, so it's not as much. And then unfortunately, I got a skill I don't really care so much about, which is the extra attack versus a specific group. In this case, the Order of Truth. But this gave me the option to go in and do those outposts, stay invisible as long as I had to, and this really worked out well for me. But now let's take a look at Ultimate Sharon, a new character they released. And with her, I didn't want to really worry about going invisible as much as I wanted to be attack based. So her skills are still somewhat the same, but I wanted to focus less on dimension and more on the fusion. So number one's the same, number two and three are the same, but the module, the Transcendent module I have on her, changes the short sword to an area suppression where she does a little flip and throws things all in a circle. And because I wanted her to be more assault based, I needed that skill to be up as often as I could so that I could throw it. So this time, we picked a reactor that is fusion based for its primary, and we went with skill cost and skill cooldowns, and that's giving me the ability to throw that massive attack on that number 4 skill as often as I can. Um, and this is the build that I used. Now, if you took the reactors from these two and switched them, it completely destroys the purpose I have for each one of those descendants. Sharon's no longer going to be very good at her stealth. It'll run out much faster. Now, I do have the cost and cooldown, so it won't be as expensive. I get to do it more, but it's not going to last as long as I need it to. And for Ultimate Sharon here, she's going to get an attack bonus and a minor fusion upgrade. So that's the key here, is whether these perks are good or bad. It really depends on what you're trying to do with your Descendant and how it can help or hinder the purpose that you're building this Descendant for. So it's very hard to say what perks are good or bad because it depends greatly on how you've built your Descendant and the playstyle that you're looking for. You can look up on Reddit, you can look up on Discords, you can watch other content creators who go over their builds and their things, and you might copy what they have as far as their Descendant, and for some reason it just doesn't work as well for you as it is for them. And this might be one of those reasons because the reactor they have has a set of perks that you don't. Um, are there good perks? Are there bad perks? Again, it depends on you and your playstyle, but there are some that are universally considered good. And of course, every single time it's going to have that caveat on it. For instance, one of the best perks that most people seem to agree on is when you get one that has additional attack versus Colossi. So that's great. You know, you go in a Colossi battle, you get an extra power. Does that matter if you never fight Colossi? If you never go into an intercept battle, it's a wasted perk. Now, if you go to a Colossi battle, obviously you want to have that equipped. But is that going to help you during the regular game and your regular day-to-day tasks? So is it a good perk? Yes, but it's situational. As I said before, some characters have terrible crit rates as a base. So boosting their crit rate might be good, but it's not going to be as effective as it could be on other characters who maybe are a different arcade type. And personally, I don't have much use for the attack bonus versus the Order of Truth and the Legion of Darkness and that. I haven't met a Vulgus that doesn't die when I try to kill it, so I don't feel like I need that additional attack bonus. But certain ones like skill cost, skill cooldown, skill range, and skill duration, they're pretty much always good because it allows you to use your skills more often, cheaper, they last longer, and it gives you a lot of time to experiment with them. So it's really hard to determine whether or not a skill is quote unquote good or bad. I'm sorry, not a skill, a perk is quote unquote good or bad because it really depends on you and your play style and how you're using your Descendant. I mean, I play Eugen as a heavy main, and his skills are all about healing and regenerating shields. So critical hits aren't going to do anything for me. It just depends on how you built your character and how you plan to use them. Now, another thing you have to consider is how you build your character and what modules you use, because those modules can definitely have an effect on whether or not a reactor is still good, totally trash, or even better. Let's look at this example here with this. Now, this is a tingling reactor, but let's just say that this was a toxic reactor. And I've got skill critical damage and skill critical hit rate. So this is great because I'm getting more critical hits and the damage is going to be way stronger. But let's take a look at the build that I use for my ultimate Freyna, and she has this module, Tech Amplification, which gives me a 60% increase in my tech skills, but it takes my critical hit rate down 140%. So this module is actually erasing any benefit that I would have from the reactor we were just looking at. I guess you could say, 110 minus 110 is better than minus 140, but in both cases, it's just not going to happen. And it gets worse because I also have this module, which gives a toxic amplification, which gives me a toxic skill bonus, but it takes my critical hit damage down 140%. So these two modules have just completely wiped away any benefit that I might have from a reactor that gives me additional critical hit and critical damage. Also, Freyna's base critical hit's not very high to begin with, so it's not helping. So this is, when I use this, this is the bunny reactor that I have. This works out really well, but for this on a toxic for Freyna, it's garbage. It's not going to help me out any. So it's possible to build your way out of a reactor. If you head over to a workbench, you have the ability, if you have the right materials, to make a reactor a little bit better. The way we do that is through reactor enhancement or for implanting a reactor. Let's talk about enhancement first. So you go through here and it brings up all the reactors that you're currently carrying, and you pick one and you say, you know what, I want to advance this reactor. Well, what it does is it lifts the base skill power up by a certain amount. It's not really that much at first, but keep in mind that this is your base level. So any modifiers that you have for like optimized conditions, whether you're equipped or mounted, and any kind of perks that you have down below that are adding to skill power, they're going to feed off of this base amount. So it's kind of increasing by a lot more than you would initially look at through here. And it's also not that expensive material or gold cost wise. In this case, you're only using one of these precise ion accelerators. If I do it twice, you'll see that number does go up. But these guys aren't that expensive and they aren't that hard to make. So those first two adjustments, that's pretty easy to do. And if you have a reactor that you think is good, go ahead and do that. But if you go to the third, fourth, or fifth increase, now it's getting expensive. And boy, does it ever get expensive. As you can see, in order to go up to these higher levels, it added a new material. And in order to get that material, you're going to have to make three different things or have three different materials just to craft that over at the Magisters. And this gets very, very expensive and very time consuming. In a little bit, we'll head over to the Magisters and I'll show you just how much these things cost. But I would say to you, in my advice, go ahead and take a reactor up to level 2 if you like it. But don't try to do 3, 4, or 5 unless you're absolutely sure that this reactor is really good and really does exactly what you want. Just because, like I said, you'll see here in a bit, it gets mighty expensive. We drop out of that and we look at the implant reactor. And what this does is you can select any reactor you have, and this deals with the optimized condition. Let's say you've got a reactor that's really great. Great perks, great skills, great everything. The only problem is its optimized condition is a gun that you don't want to use or that you're not going to use often. Well, what you can do is take another reactor with a different optimized condition and you can implant it into this one, so now you'll have two options. You can have up to 3. Obviously, you can't get a third until you get a second option. But so once you do the second one, the third one unlocks. But you can put up to 3 different weapon groups. So for instance, you could have this machine gun, which it came with. I could put submachine gun on it, and then I could put handgun. And now, any three of those weapons, any one of them I'm using, I'm still going to keep my skill bonuses. It does get very pricey. So this is not something you want to do just willy-nilly. It's only, what, 10,000 gold? But these materials, it takes a ton, 200 and 2,000, and that's a lot. But this can take a reactor that you really wish you could use but can't use all the time, and can be something that you can use on a regular basis. You'll notice that I have this reactor highlighted and I have that diamond in there. The reactor here, nothing special. Blue perks, but I like that submachine gun. And I kept it and marked it that way so that in the event that I got, say, a reactor that has, in this one, machine gun, then I know that this is a good implant to a weapon system that I use often. I would say submachine guns probably my favorite. Thunder Cage, Python are great. That's why I've indicated this one as a diamond, and this is just in my inventory for the process of implanting it. But like I said, because of the expense involved, um, we don't do that without doing some serious research and some serious playtime on a reactor to make sure that it's worth implanting in. Let's head over to the Magisters right now, and I'll show you what I was talking about. So in order to implant that reactor, you're going to need 200 of the precise and 2,000 of the regular ones. And these can become rather pricey. So you need the superconductor core in order to make these. The only way to get this is to dismantle other reactors. So the more you play, more reactors come up off the ground. The more you destroy them, this number will go up. Um, but yeah, it takes a while. It takes a good while to get enough. Like I said, for this you need 200. We're going to move this up to just 100 of them, which is half what we need. And it's going to take a ton of these little cores. Also, it's 33 hours in order to make it, and it costs 2 million gold, and we've got to do this twice in order to implant one reactor into the other. So that's what I'm talking about as far as, this gets real expensive. Um, and it's also a pretty good dedication to getting the materials. It's not so bad with the ion accelerators. You need solenoids, and you can get them in a ton of different places, as well as getting them from breaking down reactors too. But at least this one has a few more options, and you're going to collect these a lot more just in your standard playtime. But it also shares the same cost and time when you try to do the maximum. Here we'll push this all the way up to 2,000, and you'll see it still takes the 33 hours. It still costs 2 million, but you need 100,000 of these solenoids, and it takes a while to get those. I've been making these on a regular basis anytime I have enough to get as many as I can. So as you can see, I've at least got a backlog, but this shows you also that I don't do it that often. We are very particular on where we spend these two materials. And for that third, fourth, and fifth advancement, you need to use these dimension analyzers, and this requires a ton of those two materials as well. Um, they make really quick. I don't know why. Like here you can see we can make one in just 6 seconds. It only costs 10,000, so those are nice. But it requires the precise and regular ion accelerators as well as the quantum incubators. These are a little more difficult to get. You get them from the Infernal Walker right now, and I'm guessing the Infernal Defiler will drop them as well. You can also get them from the Void Vessel missions. So they are out there, but as you can see, to make these, it gets pricey. The time is never really a problem. I'm making 500 of them, and you only need a couple, man, I think you only need about 100 in order to make one to get it to level 3, and then 4 and 5. So it's 20, 40, and 60 each time. So to make 100, which would fully upgrade one reactor, if you have enough of the other materials, it's pricey. It's very pricey. But it can be worth it. So you have to make that decision.